You told me when this, before the interview began, that you have had the opportunity to review CWA's agency agreement and the statement of understanding that it has with its adoptive parents. What does it say about guarantees of health?
It says it can't guarantee the health of a child, but given the severity of the disabilities that her child has and the serious illnesses that he has, which are clear to any non-medical person, let alone a medical practitioner, how could that mistake be made?
Well, if you don't mind, if you would allow me the opportunity to reframe this into a discussion of medical errors in general. I do not and cannot talk with you about the specifics of the Bose adoption process. I've said everything I'm going to say about that in specific. And you know that. You know I've provided you a copy of the response from their attorney saying that I'm not allowed to talk about their file. So that's as much as I'm going to say about it. Let me talk with you, though, about medical issues in children's files in general. First of all, CWA does not draft medical documents. CWA is not comprised of doctors. If there are medical documents, those are comprised by doctors. Second, if you would. Second, CWA tells parents that Ethiopia is a country that is still developing, and medical information from there can be inaccurate, sometimes just completely wrong, sometimes just have omissions. And so they encourage parents to form their own assessments. In fact, parents and CWA agree in writing that the parent will conduct any medical investigations it deems necessary. CWA's role, which is misinterpreted, I believe, by the flyaway piece, CWA's role is to gather the medical record that exists and to hand it to adoptive parents, and they spell that out in their agreement with parents. Parents are then encouraged to hire an international adoption doctor. CWA will gladly coordinate those efforts. If that happens, if a parent then travels and there's some undisclosed, some condition that couldn't be found until later, CWA even has a provision in their agreement that says the parent doesn't have to take that child. They'll substitute another child. And finally, let me just say this. There's no motivation. This is the irony of all of this. There is no motivation for CWA to place a sick child in the family of one who doesn't want them, because CWA has a list of parents waiting for special needs children. If someone says, I don't want that child, they have a medical condition that I can't handle, CWA can readily place those with someone who is willing to handle that.
But the court documents, the documents that CWA presented to the court said that Lisa Bowe's child was a healthy child, had everything, all its results were normal. Why was that the case? Why were those documents presented to court when he was clearly seriously ill?
You know, as you ask me that question, that you're leading me into a trap, because I cannot speak about what is in the Bose file. And we've been through that, you and I. In fact, I think we had a conversation where you told me before that their name wouldn't even come up. But that's okay. It has. And I'll just say this. There is a lawsuit involving the Bose and involving CWA. And CWA believes with absolute certainty that it can demonstrate that claims have been made by the Bowe family that are not factual.
What about the doctor, the CWA doctor in Ethiopia who we interviewed at a very sophisticated hospital in Addis Ababa, who actually told us that he had been pressured on numerous occasions to lie about the age of children?
And let's make sure that we tell the whole story again, because it seems like perhaps ABC has a problem with that. The whole story is, this is a doctor. He was a physician, not a CWA doctor, as you've called him. He is a doctor that CWA hired as part of his duties. He worked at a local hospital, and he would come and maintain the physical well-being of these children. Okay. First of all, let's set that straight. He wasn't a CWA doctor.
But he was making medical reports
for
CWA.
True. That is true,
and he
Marianne.
said on numerous occasions he had been pressured to lie about the age of children.
Particularly what? Go ahead and finish what he said. It was on the tape. He said, especially with regard to their ages. Do you remember that
Yes, that's
from the
right.
tape?
Yep.
Well, the problem with that is a cultural one. In Ethiopia, as you know, you've been there, I'm sure you've examined their culture some. In Ethiopia, very little emphasis is placed on age. There are little birth records. People often will not know the date they were born. They will not remember. They don't celebrate birthdays. That is an important thing in America. It's probably an important thing in Australia. What we find is that often those ages are wrong. The ages that are reported to the government and that are provided to us after the child is deemed an orphan and adoptable, the ages that are reported are often wrong. CWA has learned that. And that's why, as you've reviewed the agency agreement, it says parents don't rely on the reported ages by the government. It also says this, parents, we're going to require you to read an article by a prominent physician who calls herself an orphan doctor, and we attach a copy of that article and we say, we want you to sign this article, parents. So we tell them not to rely on the ages that are given. We give them an article by a prominent physician that explains this conundrum, as this physician calls it, in Ethiopia. Then what CWA does is it takes photos of these children on a regular basis, photos that it provides to potential parents. The reason that CWA does that is because they want the parents to see what CWA is seeing. If CWA gets a report that shows a child is 5 years old, CWA might look at that child and say, you know, that child looks older or younger. Can CWA change that record? No, they cannot. What they can do is they can say, parent, here are the pictures, you assess the age. And they do that. If I might finish,
One family that we've spoken to.
I understand. Let me answer the question about the doctor, if I might.
No.
You don't want me to answer the
Okay,
question about the
okay,
doctor.
Go on. Yep.
Okay. Well, because of this cultural anomaly in Ethiopia, physicians will not give great attention to age
But
issues.
he said he was actually told to lie, to actually
To
lower
lie.
the age of a child, and he was pressured by CWA employees to do that.
Well, what was on the tape was that he was pressured to change the ages of children. Now, the balance of what you've just told me...
No, it wasn't that. It was...
I have the transcript.
He was pressured to change the ages of children, pressured to actually lower the ages of children.
Now, you've said lower the ages. Your transcript doesn't say that.
No, because we paraphrased what he said, and maybe that wasn't
ABC
clear,
does a
but-
lot of paraphrasing of things. And what he is pressured to do is to more accurately define the age of these children, because they won't give attention to that. And that's another issue. There are 6 million, by some estimates, 6 million orphans in Ethiopia. 2,000 a year, last year at least, were adopted to the U.S. That means for every child adopted to the U.S., there is a candidate pool of 3,000. There are 3,000 available for each adoption. It makes no sense why an agency would
Well,
go
why then?
and
Okay,
would
why then
force
have we
force these
spoken to
adoptions.
Several families who actually have discovered that their children come from middle-class, educated parents. Why does that happen? Why would CWA accept them for adoption?